Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Abdul. Abdul, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ben. So glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Well, I'm really excited for today's subject, but I'm also really fascinated by your background. And we were talking beforehand about everything you've done in your career and your life and how you got into marketing. Abdul, maybe before we dive into the subject, tell us a little bit about your background, who you are and what you love about marketing, and then we can kind of dive into it for the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm head of marketing at Lexitas Pharma Services. We're CRO, a contract research organization. So we do clinical trials for pharmaceutical companies, which are very, very complex. And we focus on ophthalmology specifically, so only on diseases of the eye. It's a really, really cool area, very niche, but really cool. But as a marketer, my background actually is started out as an organic chemist, which is about as far away as you can get from marketing as possible. And I loved being an organic chemist, but I also realized it was a very narrow career path, and organic chemists have a shorter life expectancy. Look that up. You don't live very long. So at one point I decided, you know what, let me make a career transition. And actually I was able to merge those two, the world of marketing and chemistry, life sciences. So here I am today. It's actually really cool because it's brought me this kind of outcomes-based mindset into my marketing world, which I developed as an organic chemist. In organic chemistry, where we're all about outcomes and results, not about kind of the intermediary kind of tactics that we're doing, right? So we were there very much focused. Did you kill the bacterium that you were working on, or the virus? Did you stop the progression of cancer in the cell, right? Those are the specific outcomes. So I take that same mindset to what I do in marketing. Is like, what is our goal? It's revenue. Are we looking for revenue, et cetera? So I focus much less on operational metrics than I do on the overall high level goals that we're trying to achieve.
I love that. I love that approach. And I love how clear and concise you are making the metrics and everything in marketing and simplifying. I think that's super cool. So for today's conversation, what's really cool, Abdul, you posted this really powerful LinkedIn post about really what marketers and CMOs should be focusing on going into 2024. We'll link to it in the show notes because it's really cool, but I'd love to go through this, like what you think the top 5 things are where people should spend their money and their time and their effort. So really diving into it. Number 1, first party data. Now this is a subject we could go on for hours about, but why do people need to at least be aware of first party data coming into this year?
Yeah, so let me preface, like, this isn't my original thinking. I actually, in December, I'm fortunate to be connected very well in the marketing world with a lot of CMOs. So I spoke with a whole bunch of them. And some of the themes that came up over and over again, which is the genesis of this post, right? Some of it is my thinking, but also just things I heard. First party data is so important going forward because of the number of things that are happening. And most notably is the expiration of third-party cookies in Chrome, right, in Google. But Google is behind the curve if you think about it, right? Safari, Mozilla, all those guys were well ahead of it. There's increasing regulations. I was Googling yesterday. There are, let me see, I have it here. Colorado, Washington, Texas, Florida, Oregon, Montana, and Connecticut are all introducing new or enhanced privacy laws this year. Think about that. Over 50% of the country, right, at this point have some privacy law. That's in the US, right? And the US is, let's face it, far behind the Europeans and other countries, Asian countries, right? In terms of they have much more strict privacy laws. So we're just at this point in time where you can't continue to use or abuse customer data the way you did in the past. So that's one of the things that all the people that I spoke with mentioned is like, how do we continue to develop content? How do we develop personalized messages for our customers without kind of interfering with their rights and with our obligations? So that's one of the big things that people are really focused on this year.
And there are a lot of really powerful articles out there about how to get away from cookies and do this and that, but it is a trend. And I think it's for the better. I think that there's a good opportunity for us to build meaningful relationships, let people kind of drive their own experience, but really be a resource and not force things through the cookies and all this excessive tracking. And I think it'll actually help marketing as a whole. So I'm really excited for these changes, but it's a big deal moving in this year. So I think it's a great call out at number 1 for sure.
And it forces you to develop content that's more interesting to the client, right? And then that's how you encourage the client to give you their data, right? Moving from third party to first party data. They're not going to give you their data if all you're producing is crap ads for them. But if you give them something worthwhile, like peer to peer education, thought leadership, that's what gets them to kind of engage with you.
Yeah, I love it 100%. So number 2 is privacy versus personalization. So it is kind of a balancing act. This really ties into point number 1. But what do you think about here when it comes to a tailored experience versus a more private experience? How do you balance those?
I don't know if anybody has an answer to that. I certainly don't. I'm not smart enough to have an answer, but I think we have to figure this out very quickly, right? You're right. These two are the points 1 and 2 are very, very closely connected to each other. What I thought was interesting, Meta, Facebook, is offering in Europe, offering 2 levels of service now for its users. And you can have either the paid with no ads, or you can consent to getting ads. Then you use, that tracks your data. And I think it's 12 euros a month or something like that if you're in the European Union, or in a Euro state. So that is being followed by other companies. TikTok is starting to experiment with that too. So we'll see if that's actually going to be effective or not. I mean, it's already raising all kinds of privacy concerns as well, right? And it's like, is this coercive? Are you really doing? If you're maybe floating by the letter of the law, maybe you're not, but you're just kind of doing something that's not, it's going to aggravate the user. So I don't know if anybody has really understood what the answer is, but I think we're going to see a lot of, for lack of a better word, innovation in the next few years in this area, right? So you're trying to balance what those two are. And it comes back to what I said earlier, is if you give them good enough content, then they're going to give you their information. They've gladly volunteered for it, right? But you can't be continuing to provide crap content for them and expect them to give you their data.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, one of the things I've noticed, and I posted on this recently that I'm passionate about, is the idea of just asking, right? Like asking them for their data, providing value, but personalization is usually these guesses, right? Oh, I think they're going to want this based off of this data point and this third-party cookie. And really, at the end of the day, if you're building a relationship, to just say, what do you want from me? Like, what can I do that will provide you value? They answer, great, you provide that. And now you've got the personalization with the privacy. And I think sometimes we overcomplicate and over technology solutions, but I think there's like a simple solution to just ask and say, what do you want and how can we help you? And then go out and do it, because it's clear what they want. And it's really powerful. And oddly enough, not many people do it, which is really cool.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the reasons it's effective, because not many people do it, right? If everybody did it, that would probably change the game as well.
Yeah. So number 3, this one is a big one. AI. AI is where people are spending a ton of time and effort and energy. There are laws, different countries are looking at, copyright issues, things like that. What are your thoughts on, how do we approach AI in 2024, and what should be, maybe be a little concerned about and kind of keep our eyes on?
Yeah, so this one is huge, right? This area is huge in so many different ways. And let's just focus it on what we're talking about here right now in the context of content and providing information for your clients, right? Because we could go into 10 different directions. The conversation I had with the CMOs this past December was, hey, I hate to keep referring to Europe, but it's a very relevant, right? The European Union has an AI Act that it just passed. It's the first law in the world around AI, about ethical use of AI. Whether you like it or not, it's going to impact you. If you're selling in Europe, if you have clients there, you're going to have to comply with it, whether you like it or not, right? So the idea behind the AI Act is to ensure that companies are kind of fundamentally respecting human rights, transparency, protecting privacy, and so forth, right? So it has good intentions with it, but there's some real legal implications, which is going to get marketing really potentially caught up in some things. So if you think about the conversation we just had about personalization, about chatbots, right? About reviews, all of that, all of those things can be supercharged by AI. How can we continue to do this without getting in trouble with European regulators? Because those fines are going to add up very, very quickly, especially if you're a large organization. So that's something I think we're just actually going to slow down the push for AI. Certainly, it's made me think twice. We were thinking about an AI-powered chatbot for our website, right? And it started making me think, oh, what do I need to do in order to make sure that don't run afoul of this law, because we have people from overseas, outside of the US, coming in. So those are some really important things that we need to think about also. And this one should be naturally about, unfortunately, we do have to say it. Like, you can't be using AI to focus on specific demographics like race or identity or anything like that. That's not okay. So all of that, as you're trying to build your content for your customers, you really have to think through how that's going to affect you.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to say it was Southwest Airlines. There was an airlines recently that had some kind of a chatbot issue and offered a promotion that this individual, legally they had to fulfill on it. And this individual ended up getting this promotion. And also another thing, like AI is not perfect, and AI can, just like a human, hallucinate or make up something. And if it's got your stamp on it, you're going to be held accountable for it. It's not that you can just point your finger and say, hey, the AI got it wrong. You have to treat it like an employee of your business almost, and really trust the data coming out of it.
For better or for worse, I think there's going to be really interesting for the next few years to see how AI is going to impact people, how companies are going to run afoul of it. And I think most of the violations will be unintentional. People haven't thought about specific things that are going to happen, right? It's going to be a steep learning curve.
We're moving on to number 4, more video. And this is a trend that I personally love. I think video is powerful. It forces you to be creative. It forces you to be authentic. What are your thoughts on 2024 and video? Maybe how do you stand out with video in 2024?
I think there's a huge opportunity here, especially if you're in the B2B world. I think B2C in so many ways is ahead on the marketing edge on what they do, just much more innovative, much more advanced. The B2B world is learning. And I think if you're one of the early birds on this one, you can get ahead. So for example, TikTok style video shorts or YouTube video shorts, whatever you want to, Instagram reels, those are highly engaging, highly informative. And if you go scroll through most people's LinkedIn feeds, they're pretty boring. If you insert all of a sudden a little 40-second video of a subject matter expert or a peer or a customer at another company talking 30 seconds about this one particular problem, everybody in their right mind is going to stop and listen and pay attention. Boom, right there, you've got their attention. You can, it's much more powerful for the client because it's actual knowledge. It's more powerful for you because you're not advertising yourself. You're advertising your thought leadership or your other clients, right? So I think there's an opportunity here for B2B businesses to really start, standing out. That's going to be a limited time opportunity until everybody starts to do it, but I think it's going to be a while. So I'm a big believer in that. And it doesn't even just have to be short form. I think short form is the most powerful one, but you take a podcast like we're doing now, and then you chop it up in 10 different ways and like little clips here, and then like a Canva version or whatever, right? And then a blog article, and really like hypercharging the amount of content you can deliver. In fact, for my own podcast, my son is actually helping me edit that, and he creates different versions of it. So people must think I'm crazy because I'm putting out a ton of content on LinkedIn every day. But I spend far less time now than I did 2 months ago, and I've tripled the volume. And it's him that does it, right? But the idea behind it is you just take that one piece, that core piece of video, you can create 10 different pieces out of it.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we're hesitant to do like the repurposing because we're like, oh, people are going to get bored with it. And let's be honest, like most people probably didn't see the first one or the second one or even the third one. You need a lot of touch points before they can actually see the content and get the benefit. It's not like the LinkedIn algorithm is putting you in front of every single person every single time. It is something where repurposing is really just getting to your audience a single time, as opposed to like overbearing them in the first place. So
Exactly, absolutely right. And I wouldn't be worried about that. I just keep putting it up right over and over again. We do that for at Lexitas. We put up the same content 10 times in over a period of a month, right? Knowing that only a fraction of our audience, our followers, see it at any point in time.
Yeah, 100%. So number 5, and I love this subject because I think it's really important, because I think a lot of times we waste a lot of money and time and effort on this, but really being smarter with our tech stack. So what do you think about tech stacks when it comes to 2024? What should we be thinking about?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer, and this is a bit of a controversial one because I think I'm a SaaS marketer. I believe in technology, but I think we really have to be smarter about what we use, and not as much, and make more use of the limited tools, a smaller subset, right? We're out of this area where it was free flow of cash in the pandemic, zero interest, and everybody could buy any tool they want. Now the money is starting to cost something, right? The loans you're taking are actually costing you. So you have to be smarter about what tools you buy. I was at a company that had every tool under the sun, even multiple competitive products, and you end up using less and less. what I actually think is, and I can't dictate to anybody what their MarTech stack should look like, but it needs to be smart and it needs to be small is how I look at it, right? What are the handful of tools that are really driving impact for you? What are the supporting tools, and everything else you can kind of just probably think about retiring or using in a different way.
Yeah. And I think really focusing on what is your core belief and how you market, and finding the softwares and the solutions that align with that philosophy, and realizing software is not going to solve all your problems. And it's really to augment things that you have figured out, as opposed to replacing or hopefully getting your whole company to suddenly move in a new direction. You kind of have to do that manually before software can actually be, beneficial.
Every company every customer I've ever talked to, any industry, they always say the same thing. The problem is not the technology, it's their processes, right? They're trying to figure out their process. That's 80% of the problem. The tools are just the enablers behind that. So I don't think you need huge tech stacks.
I love it. Well, we have come to the end of the time today, but Abdul, thank you so much for your thoughts and everything you shared. I love this whole list. We'll link to it in the show notes. But if anyone wants to continue the conversation and connect with you online, how can they reach out and connect with you?
LinkedIn is the best way. Just find me, Abdul Rastegar. I think there's only one of me out there, fortunately for everybody. There's only one of me. But yeah, would love to connect. And I love to network with people. So just send me a message. And if you want to have a coffee chat, we'll do it.
Love it. Love it. And again, thanks for your time and sharing all your information. Really appreciate it.
Very cool. Thanks for having me on, Ben.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.